And they knew the secrets of the angels, and sin was great in the earth, and there were the watchers, and they killed man, took themselves to the daughter of men, they begat giants. The angels exploit, consumed, the fruitlessness of the earth, consumed all the foods of the earth, and everything that the earth produced, even the great fish. And they ate everything from the seas to the sky, with all that grew, even the fruit of the earth, and all kinds of grain, and all the trees and their fruits. They consumed beasts and reptiles, and all creeping things of the earth, and they observed all uncleanness. Why do angels hunger and thirst, one might ask? The same reason Adam and Eve began to hunger and thirst after committing the first sin. They were now imperfect, and their creator was no longer sustaining them. So just as the case with Adam and Eve, the fallen now had to make a means to an end to sustain themselves. Continuing from the book of Giants, it says, and they performed every harsh deed and blasphemous utterance and sexual deeds on male and female, and among humans and on animals. 200 donkeys, 200 asses, 200 rams of the flock, 200 goats, 200 beasts of the field, from every animal, from every bird, for sexual acts, regardless of species. The outcome of the demonic corruption was violence, perversion, and a brood of monstrous beings. They defiled themselves. They begot giants and monsters. They begot, and behold, all the earth was corrupted with its blood, and by the hand of the angels. And there was sin and death committed by the offspring of the angels, which are giants. And the giants began to devour the animals, which did not suffice for them, and they were seeking to devour many humans. So sacrifices of animals were offered, and when an animal was offered, the monsters attacked it. Monsters defiled all flesh. There were offspring of the monsters, and they would arise, lacking in true knowledge, and because of them, the earth grew more corrupt. To spell it out clearly, the Annunaki were amorphous, meaning without definite shape. They could change their form. This ability allowed them to fornicate not only with mankind, but also animals. These offsprings were completely evil in their entirety and preyed on mankind. In exchange, mankind began animal offerings, and you can assume human offerings, to spare themselves as a whole from being devoured. Here we get the origins of animal and human sacrifices to deities in indigenous cultures of polytheistic nature. The offspring of the Anunnaki also varied from one another and warred against each other. Accordingly, according to Jubilees, where it states, they, the woman, bore to them, the watchers, 3 races. First, the great giants. The giants brought forth the Nephilim, and the Nephilim brought forth the Elohid, and they existed, increasing in power according to their greatness. And they begat sons, the Nephidim, and they were all unlike, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Elho, and the Elho mankind, and one man another. And everyone sold himself to work iniquity and to shed much blood, and the earth was full with iniquity. And after this they sinned against the beasts and birds, and all that moves and walks on the earth. And much blood was shed on the earth, and every imagination and desire of men imagined vanity and evil continually. And the Lord destroyed everything from off the face of the earth, because of the wickedness of their deeds, and because of the blood which they had shed in the midst of the earth, he destroyed everything.
Disclosure. The images provided were made realistically accurate according to the original description of the subjects in this section. These are not stereotypes. I do not own the rights to the provided depictions.
There are 7 types of angels. Each archangel is a different type of angel and the highest ranking of their kind. When the angels fell, angels from each division fell, including archangels. Not enough information is given for us to determine what type of angel each archangel is. Archangels are the chiefs of angels, the highest ranking beings outside of God himself. As mentioned earlier, there is also a hierarchy within the archangels. The archangel Michael is the chief of all archangels, as he is called the great prince and leader of all other angels. The hierarchy of the angels change depending on text and culture. The seraphim, described as fiery 6-winged beings with 2 wings that cover their faces, 2 that cover their feet, and the last 2 used to fly. The cherubim, who look nothing like Cupid, are described as having 4 wings, 2 pointed upward and used to fly, and 2 to cover their bodies. The cherubim have a lion's body and the feet of oxen with 4 faces, one of a man, an ox, a lion, and an eagle. They are the guardians of God's throne, the Garden of Eden, and God's sanctuaries. Lucifer, who is Azazel, was a cherub and their head chief, aka the cherub archangel.
Cherubim have multiple eyes located all over their bodies and wings.
Thrones are fiery, multiple-eyed wheels that are angels that uphold and guard the throne of God and move simultaneously with the cherubim. Principalities are guardian angels who watch over individual people and even small groupings of peoples, such as nations or tribes, accordingly, and are the messengers for God to mankind and also serve as educators to mankind. Powers and authorities are a warrior class of angels who watch over the distribution of power amongst mankind. These are the angels at bay when there's talks of spiritual warfare. Virtues are angels that literally keep everything in order and sequence, from the movement of electrons to the clouds, the paths of the wind, the development of all living things and their anatomies, even blades of grass. They keep the order of the seasons and the movement of the cosmos. These angels keep the structure of the universe in line. Although archangels are the head chiefs of these divisions, beneath them are several chains of commands for each grouping, just like in civilization. I wanted to give you a breakdown of these angels and their features so you'd be able to better put 2 and 2 together as we segue into our next section. The offspring of the Anunnaki created beings of what we now call mythology. However, as stated in prior videos, mythology is very rarely ever really a myth. It's always as real to the people of that time as our current existence is to us right now. The word itself is just to redirect us from the truth, which is usually very eerie, very true, and worse than the fantasy, the Disney, the mythical nature we are presented. Much worse. The previously read excerpts confirmed that they were hybrids, including half human, half animal hybrids, amongst other variations, who also mated with humans and with each other, creating beings who are now mere legend and myth. 2 of which who we've been able to confirm existed from archaeological finds, such as giants and dinosaurs. All, in fact, are a product of this reproduction, alongside the phoenix, the sphinx, the griffin, harpies, fairies, cyclops, ogres, werewolves, satyrs, the manticore, minotaurs, centaurs, the kraken, the hydra, dragons, mermaids, and even vampires originated from these beginnings, as humans were literally preyed on and had began preying on each other even through means of cannibalism. And the drinking of the blood performed by the offspring of the Anunnaki had made its way into the culture of mankind. Now, imagine all of these creatures existing alongside the fallen angels, alongside giants, who according to the book of Enoch averaged 4,500 feet tall, and then mankind, who also according to the book of Enoch averaged 90 feet tall, making mankind the bottom of the food chain, and within that, mankind warred and preyed on each other, just like you see in series like The Walking Dead, where mankind goes from trying to survive the monsters to trying to survive the corrupt humans who are surviving the monsters too. That's a nightmare. Let's connect some dots here. The forms of the children of the fallen that I just mentioned actually fall in line with the different forms that the Jinn and Shaitan have been noted to take. And to me, it could easily fit into the history of the Jinn. The Jinn, who are in particular mentioned in the Islamic faith. Jinn in appearances are known to appear in the shape of various forms, such as number 1, animals, number 2, people, number 3, anthropomorphous and monstrous, meaning a monstrous combination of animal traits and human traits. An example of this would be the Great Sphinx, who is actually an anthropomorphic combination of a human, a lion, and an eagle. Sphinxes in general vary in heads. They can have the head of a human, a falcon, a cat, or a sheep. Historians seem to think the Great Sphinx of Giza in Egypt is a caricature of an ancient pharaoh or Anubis, when in fact it is the depiction of an offspring of a cherub angel. Remember, cherubs are winged angels with four heads conjoined to each other, each facing a different direction, composing of a human, an ox, an eagle, and a lion, with the body of a lion and the feet of an ox. Also remember, Lucifer was the cherub archangel. Given they don't even know when the Sphinx was built, or so they say, I presume it was built before Noah's flood, since it literally had to be excavated by different pharaohs over the centuries and restored little by little to be what we now see it as, because previously it was buried beneath the desert sands. King Tut is recorded as the first to begin excavating the Great Sphinx, uncovering the front paws after much effort. The Great Sphinx of Giza originally was built as homage to a then living offspring of the Anunnaki, whose domain was Egypt. It is a given that Egypt has prominent history with the fallen / Anunnaki that is still evident to this day given their historical sites. The pyramids themselves were built prior to Noah's flood also, and were upkept and restored through time to be as well preserved as we witness they are now. Number 4, storms. Due to their wind nature in particular, they are associated with mists, cyclones, and sandstorms, but have been noted to appear as clouds that are in places where clouds don't belong, such as low, right above a person's head, or right above a building and not higher in the atmosphere as they should be. Number 5, as serpents. Number 6, as shadows. In particular, the Jinn are mostly associated with the appearance of serpents and shadows. It coincides, especially considering that the children of the fallen were cursed to later die and rise as demons, as I will detail later. The Jinn are commonly used in witchcraft, whereas a sorcerer will summon a Jinn, make a contract with the Jinn by promise and exchange, or a seal to bind them, and the Jinn will carry out the sorcerer's will and take on tasks such as demonic possession, causing illnesses, allowing the sorcerer to prophesy, etc. Literally do whatever they want them to. King Solomon himself binded many Jinn and had them as his slaves, assisting with building his temple and petty tasks such as moving furniture in preparation for guests. Furthermore, there are 7 kings of the Jinn associated with the 7 days of the week, but also associated with the 7 archangels, who are Raphael, Gabriel, Samael, Michael, Zadkiel, Anael, and Cassiel. El is used in ancient texts in reference to deities. These angels had authority over the Jinn. This does not mean that they were the fathers of the Jinn through fornication. This just means that they were the chief of chiefs among other angels or the Jinn. In this context, the Jinn can be seen as a term for all entities, that being inclusive of good angels, fallen angels, and demons. And as we know now, by the time of Noah's flood, not all of these 7 kings remained loyal to God, such as Anael and Samael. We discussed Anael earlier, whereas in Islam, he is Zabwa, the Jinn king associated with Venus, and from that, synonymous with being Lucifer, who is Azazel. However, Samael is also amongst these Jinn kings, and there are people who associate him with being Satan. But, as stated earlier, Satan is simply a title, and there are many Satans, so maybe that's where the confusion stems from. Samael himself is noted as being against the creation of mankind and riding the great serpent and being the one who entices Eve. This theory puts him as an accessory by being the rider of the great serpent and not the great serpent himself, which will place him as not being Azazel by being Shemjaza. In other cases, Samael is the mate of Lilith, who is believed to be the first woman created, not Eve. God punishes Samael by castrating him, prompting Lilith into promiscuity. In Judaic texts, Samael equates to Satan, as in the devil, the snake that deceived Eve. Sometimes Samael is equated with Azrael, who is not Azazel, despite the similar names. Azrael is also the angel of death, often depicted as the Grim Reaper with a black hooded cloak. My opinion, they are both the same entity. Names just change through translation and culture with minor differences, just like in the case of the other deities as they are presented in different cultures. Yet in the life of Adam and Eve, Samael is named as the ruler of the fifth heaven and commander of 2 million fallen angels, which in that context and from that number, one can conclude that he is Shemjaza, since Shemjaza was punished alongside the other 2 million fallen and Azazel was not. Shemjaza was under Azazel, yet over all the fallen and their chiefs. It would make sense when concluding that the archangel Michael sentenced them to the fifth heaven, of which was made a place where evil dwelt, which is now hell. This would indeed make Samael a type of Satan, but certainly not Venus, the great serpent, the one who rebelled first and worst of all. With this, the ruler of hell is the angel of death, but he and Venus are separate entities. For more discussions of conspiracy theories or odd and unusual things that happen on this planet or in outer space or anywhere, please like, comment, and subscribe. I will not let you down. Also, what are some conspiracy theories you would like for me to talk about? Because I've heard a lot, but obviously I haven't heard them all. Please comment down below and let me know.